Finding a job is essentially a game of professional matchmaking. There's this business relationship that we seek to enter into. On one side, you have the company and they have a vacancy. On the other side, you have the employee or the candidate who's looking for the job. Each one has something that the other one wants, and so they try to find each other and then connect and then seal the deal. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But the whole experience just ends up being, well, unsatisfying for both parties, and not just because of the process, but because of how we might feel about the relationship once we enter into it. In this video, I will explain a few simple reasons of why this continues to happen and what you, as the applicant, can do about it. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Careers and Companies. My name is Larry. We're here continuing our foundational videos on the Upmarket channel, and what could be more foundational to managing your career than the job search process? Or if you are leading teams and organizations and managing staffing, you're doing that in part through recruitment. In today's video, I want to break down a broken down system, or maybe a system that's never really had its shit together in the first place. Big picture. I think, in summary, we can describe this professional matchmaking system that I talk about in a worst case scenario as a total cluster. So I want to break down this mess into two parts. The first part is we're going to talk about the game that we're playing, this process. The second part is we will talk about the players who are playing the game. That's all of us. With the overall message being, if you fast forward to the end of the video, yeah, the process needs work, but there's a whole lot more that we can do to make this crappy process work to our advantage in the state that it's in. And that's a theme that you're going to find throughout this entire video series. I want us to empower ourselves. I want us to empower each other to take control and act with confidence in environments that are at least uncertain and many times absolutely chaotic, because change is coming. Is change coming? I'm really not sure if change is coming. I mean, I've been online monitoring these conversations for the last 25 to 30 years because I'm really old, and it's the same complaints. And these complaints are coming from recruiters, from candidates, from companies, all the same things that we continue to talk about. So change, it's not coming anytime soon, I don't think. So we need to take charge and we need to move forward. Okay, first, let's talk process. How do employers even decide what process to follow to hire new employees? And why do employers all seem to be doing things differently? Really difficult for any of us to figure out what they're looking for on a resume when they decide who they want to interview. Some companies make you do 20 interviews, some make you do just 2 or 1, and the questions are all different. And there's no, or very little, transparency on how they're making hiring decisions. So is there a process? Is there a system? Are there best practices to follow to achieve some level of standardization to get the best outcomes for everybody in every situation? Well, my friends, I have good news and I have bad news. First, I have some good news. Yes, there is a process. There is a set of standard methodologies that are scientifically validated to make sure you get the right candidate for every role every time. Let me present to you Exhibit A. It's called a book. There are books that are written on this stuff, and here's one such book. It's got all the information that you need to know to do things properly. If you work in HR and you have some education, you've probably been exposed to systems and processes and textbooks like this, so you have a decent understanding of how this needs to work. So in theory, the organization is set up for success for proper recruitment procedures. But now comes the bad news. You have more than just HR involved in the recruitment process. So HR has a lot of heavy lifting to do to extend all of these best practices across the whole organization, and they are usually not successful. Why is that? Sadly, people in HR, doesn't matter what level, don't often have enough power within organizations and the authority to instill all of these practices in a reliable and consistent fashion. And second, because I do understand, I mean, it's a lot. This is like, whatever, 10 or 11 chapters of all this information and practices that you need to follow. It takes a long time to learn. I teach 13-week courses on this stuff. And it takes a long time to practice and perfect. And a lot of people just don't want to allocate time for that. I do kind of understand that, but still, that's not completely an excuse that you can use. And number 3, a lot of people involved in the recruitment and selection process, especially interviewing, They tend to have this self-concept, and we'll talk more about self-concept when I introduce you to concepts in human nature that are coming next in the foundational series of videos. But they have this belief and this idea about themselves that they just know how to pick the right candidate. And I fell for this at one point in my career. I used to think of myself as like a Dateline reporter. So people would come in to interview, and I'd be all friendly and personable, like chat them up, give them some softball questions just to make them feel really comfortable. And then I would just give them the zinger out of the blue, right? Because I thought I would just unlock the true nature of who they are and what they have to offer, and I'd get the real story, right? So we tell ourselves these stories, about ourselves and our abilities to just read people. Doesn't mean we're always wrong, but it usually means we're not always right because we're not following standard, proper, true, reliable methodologies. So organizations don't consistently at all work from best practices. They invent their own practices that are some kind of hybrid of what HR wants and needs them to do and what they want to do themselves. Also, makes it super difficult for all of you as candidates to adapt to whatever the organization is doing because everything is always a moving target in terms of process, criteria, decision making, communication, and everything else. And it's also why there's not one piece of tactical advice that you can get out there from friends, family, influencers, anybody else that is universally correct. It's contextual. It depends on the situation. I'm going to help you work through that specific issue as we move forward in this series. So yes, there is a process. Who knew? If you want to know more about the process, just stay tuned to this channel. There's going to be more videos to come specifically on the process and the best practices. But if you can't wait for that, all you have to do is just, okay. Now let's talk about the people involved and what they need to be somehow doing at an absolutely bare minimum. And when I say people, I mean everybody, like on both sides of the table, the company, and then anybody who's applying for a job. If you want to have at least a decent shot of making this professional matchmaking thing work, two incredibly important things need to happen. And they are so holistic and fundamental, yet they are so consistently not done well. Number one, both parties, the company and the candidate, eventually, if I start to monetize, I'll do stuff that's more interesting, like puppet shows and stuff like that. So hook a brother up, help me with the algo, and I won't just be giving you the finger. Anyway, both parties, the company and the candidate, need to understand themselves and they need to communicate the value they bring to the relationship. Okay, let's go over that again. Pause, lots to unpack here. Both parties need to understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and their value. And are we really good at understanding our value? No, not really. If you watch the last video that I posted, it's all about how leverage is the basis for all employer-employee relationships. We're just not reflective enough to understand all of the value that we bring, and we're not actively working to build it. Please go check out that video. I talk more about it there, and I'll be talking way more about it in videos to come. Now let's look at companies, and do they really know themselves and their value? They tend to think about it even less because deep down inside, like in their subconscious of an organization, they think their greatest selling feature is a job, money. And I know that's important, but that's not enough. But they think that that should be good enough far too often. Not enough organizations even realize that they need to really up their value game to sell themselves to the best quality candidates, to know and show that they are a great company to work for so that quality candidates can just look at them with confidence and say, yeah, I really want to work here. This is the place for me. I want to join. I want to stay in this organization and be happy there. That is what real recruitment success is. Both sides are really happy. And so this is why you end up with this sugar-coated corporate BS that is posted on company websites. And it's oftentimes just created and posted by an HR assistant. I'm not trying to diss people who work in HR, but they're not necessarily at the junior level the most insightful people about all things to do with the organization. So yes, there's legitimate stuff that you'll find on corporate websites, right? Like you'll get some of the benefits some details, hopefully, of the compensation. But when it comes to the personality, the tone of the organization, the culture, the management style, all of that stuff, really hard to dig into. And that's incredibly important to make a decision if you want to join an organization, assuming you have options. And that whole thing just gives us anxiety because we know that the stuff they put on these websites is not true, right? Everybody looks really happy all the time. Look, we're playing volleyball together. We're doing this incredible offsite volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. We're like building houses for the poor. Or here's all of us in a spirited brainstorming meeting being really creative and aesthetic, right? Look how much fun we're having. And we just kind of go, yeah, what is it that I don't know? There's a lot of anxiety on both sides of the equation that comes from I don't know what I don't know. That's one of the biggest things I want to help you with in this channel. I hope give you criteria and things that you can research and questions that you can ask to understand this better. But in the meantime, you're just left to your own devices, right? You have to, I don't know, meet as many people that you can through networking, look them up on LinkedIn, track down people in the organization or who used to work in the organization and get their opinion. There's some stuff that you can get like on Glassdoor. There's some accuracy to it, but in just about all organizations, there are going to be some unhappy employees who are many times poor performers. And organizations don't always treat poor performers well. Sometimes it's the fault of the organization. Sometimes it's the employee. So you have to figure out a way to filter out some of those just generally disgruntled employees who in some ways, I don't want to say deserve it, but shouldn't be surprised by the experience that they're having. So it's really difficult, to understand what's going on in an organization. And even when you do get to talk to people, you don't always get consistent answers. So that's not really helpful because, again, organizations don't have really strong alignment on what they're truly about, and they don't work to understand what those things could be. Sidebar, observation I want to share with you. I do a fair amount of networking because networking is a great thing to do. And I'm particularly interested in the startup space, in HR and other spaces because I'm multi-dimensional. And I do come across occasional companies who are either just recruiting companies or they're developing using AI or other tools, some software to help with this matchmaking. Now they're selling, say, this software or these services to organizations. And what ends up happening is they only focus on one angle, like one way matching, if you will. If you are doing recruitment successfully, the employee is landing in an organization that they should be in and they want to be in, not just the organization getting the right candidate for them. But that's the only part they look at. So all these tools come out to analyze resumes and using other video and other tools to be able to figure out and profile this candidate and understand if the match is there from the company's perspective. So the question I invariably ask and never get an answer on is, how do you know if the organization is the right fit for the candidate? How do you know if that candidate is going to perform well in that organization and enjoy being there and stay there over the longer term? And not just, even if they're absolutely top quality, walk into the organization, spend 6 months there and go, oh my God, this is awful, and leave. Then all that effort to do the matchmaking in the way that they're doing it is for no reason. So further evidence that they're not looking at that side of it. They're not developing tools and systems to go inside organizations and profile them culturally. I would love to do that as a part of my career at some point in the future. I would find that immensely interesting. But the reflection is not happening, and the organizations that are studying this matchmaking process are not looking at the company side of it. So anyway, I just thought I would share that just as further evidence that there isn't insight that's emerging on cultures and systems and inner workings of organizations, just candidates. We're missing out. Now, let's look at the second problem, which is very similar to the first one. Number 2. Both parties, here come the fingers again, both parties, the company and the candidate, need to understand and communicate their own wants and needs. So both companies need to know what they want and they need to figure out if the other party has it. Now, organizations do a little better at this, or so it seems on the surface. So they produce job postings with the job description, all the details about the job. the working conditions, the job specifications, everything else. And it gives a complete list of criteria for the ideal candidate. So at least that's something, right? But do you ever notice how the list of requirements is like exceptionally long? Entry level jobs are the worst for this. It's an entry level job, but the list of credentials, work experience, skills is like the length of your driveway, right? They're looking for the second coming of Christ to fill the role. Super annoying. Why does this happen? Short form, it reflects a lack of confidence in exactly what it is that we need. And the reason we have a lack of confidence is because we don't know the right procedures. Chapter 2 in the textbook is all about the job analysis. I don't know if it's chapter 2, it could be chapter 4. The job analysis is a specific discipline to really study a job and see what critical, we call them KSAOs, so knowledge, skills, abilities, and other personal attributes, what critical KSAOs, and it's usually a streamlined list, are essential to be successful on the job. So if you're not doing a proper job analysis, and very few companies do this, they usually take the last job description and they just send it to the hiring manager, and then they get it in their inbox and they go like, ugh, I don't want to look at this. They give it to somebody else, check this to see if it's right. Nobody's streamlining. People are just like, oh, they forgot communication. Oh, they forgot teamwork. So everybody's just adding to it, right? So you end up with this like epic, really long list. And then you're screwed right from the beginning. You're not set up for success in an organization because how do you test? How do you interview for 30 different things? It's almost impossible. If you don't know what the 4 or 5 or 6 critical things are, you can't like be laser focused and zone in on those things and make sure you've got the right candidate. So you're messed up right from the very beginning. And it starts with companies not putting in the work to understand exactly what they need for every job. The job analysis activity, that exercise should happen at least every 2 years in an organization, and they don't even do it like once. And do you have that fully formed list as a candidate? Can you sit down right now and make this definitive list prioritized on what your ideal next job needs to be, not just the job, the working conditions, the comp, the cultural requirements, the training, the management style, everything else? Do you have that list perfected and prioritized? The longer you've been in your career, the more developed your list is going to be, but it really takes time. And again, I'm going to help you with this in this channel. But it's kind of like dating, right? So in the early years of dating, when you first start dating, it's like, I want to date somebody who's really pretty and makes me laugh, right? And then when you get older, it's like, I want somebody who manages their money properly and knows how to resolve an argument. Totally different criteria. It's the same thing when you're working through your career. For me, my number one thing on my list right now, many other things are important, like money, all those other things. I'm not independently wealthy. This is why I'm here, like begging for a dollar from you guys. But the number one thing on my list is I want to know what the vision is for the company. I want to know what their innovation plan is. I want to know how they're growing and where the company is going to be in the next 5 years if I plan to stay there for a little while. Because that means opportunity, and opportunity means money and a whole bunch of other things. And I've seen so many organizations just start to like falter, and then things really change and it becomes an awful place to work. I'll talk a lot about that on this channel. I've had a few interesting experiences as far as that goes. So you have companies that are not super focused in terms of what they're looking for. They've got their second coming of Christ list of 30 things that they want from you. So how can they really test for those effectively? How do they know what's super important? It's just the opinion of whoever's interviewing you on that day, not a reliable process. And we don't have our criteria fully formed. So that makes this really difficult to do because we're just not in that place of insight. So this is the fundamental issue. Both sides need to know who and what they are, what they offer, and what they want and need. As simple as that. But there's a lot to it. And if you look at these 4 components, I guess, there's just breakdowns all over. So, this is really difficult to achieve. It's just not happening. And what are the root causes for that? Well, number one, there's definitely a lack of training in organization. So not enough knowledge of this, the right way to do things in organizations. There's absolutely not enough self-reflection on both sides of the table. And I'm going to say third, a lack of guidance, or maybe it's just too much advice, or lack of strategic guidance and insightful guidance that comes from knowledge about both people and human nature and organizations. I guess that's why I'm here, to help you effectively and efficiently live up to your side of the bargain. And number 4, it's not taking enough I don't want to say time, because it's not just about time. It's not investing enough strategic focus in what you're doing, enough energy in the right areas. And again, that's part of my calling here. You know, for most of us, our careers are really important. And also, companies are not managing your career for you. That's our job. So consider it like ROI, if you know that term, return on investment. If you're not investing much into it, you get very little out of it. And that's like most things in life. I realize it's a pain, right? But it's worth it. So my job is to take some of that pain away and make it all doable. Think of me as your pain reliever. Okay, this is really bad. I used to work for Tylenol, and I'm sitting here like publicly flashing a generic. Oh, well, I don't work for them anymore, so. Okay, where are we at as we finish off? Recruitment, disaster, got it. Both sides, employer and applicant, not completely on their game. So for those of us looking to land a job, what do we do about it besides, I don't know, just like try harder? And the answer lies in a change in mindset. I don't want to discount the importance of trying to adapt to whatever employers are doing throughout their recruitment. But what commonly happens is we ultimately just get overwhelmed by what's going on out there. It doesn't make any sense. We get really confused, trying to figure things out. And at the end of the day, we just start to check out. And then the behaviors that we take up are things like playing the numbers game. You might have heard the term spray and pray. So we're just going to inundate the environment with all kinds of information about us. I'm going to send out resumes. I'm just going to go to different networking events. Hopefully somebody will just take an interest in us. But at the end of the day, deep down inside, we're not really confident in what we're doing, and that lack of confidence shows. So we're not being efficient, and we're not being effective. My appeal to all of you is to become your own North Star. There is an insight that I'll expand on later in this video series that argues one of the best ways to work with leaders is to tell them what to do. Now, that may sound counterintuitive, believing that leaders really like to be led, but it's true. They love it. They love it when people tell them what to do. So use that type of insight to become really clear about all this: who and what you are, what you offer, why they should want this. Bring that clarity and that confidence to the table, and I can assure you, companies will respond. One of the hesitations that employers have when it comes to pulling the trigger and giving a job offer is that they don't know what they're getting. They don't know what they don't know. You have that same problem on your side when you're deciding if you want to join a company. That makes all of us really nervous and anxious. You and I together are going to tackle that issue head on by bringing that clarity about yourself to organizations. Through this channel, I will empower you to just lay it out for the employer. I know myself. I know my value. I know what will happen to the team or the entire organization once I join. I know what I'm looking for. I know what will make me happy and fulfilled in my career. And I know how to figure all this stuff out through my interactions with you so that I can show you why this is a match. So there. You've just done all the work for them. Who doesn't want somebody to do all their work for them? By taking this approach, you are not waiting for somebody to open doors for you. You are kicking them down and you are stepping through. Click subscribe if you want to ride with us. Click like if you like this video. Leave any comments or questions and I'll definitely check them out. But otherwise, just stay close. There's so much more to come. And in the meantime, just keep it moving. Keep thinking, keep learning, keep growing just a little bit. And I'll see all of you real soon.